Good evening, it's Jenna here from Jenna's Crafting Studio. Thank you for joining me for Sunday stamping. I'm just going to make sure that everything looks okay on the Facebook Live. If you're joining me live, feel free to leave a comment and let me know you're watching. If you have any questions as I'm going through, just leave a comment and I should be able to see them. If I don't get to you during the video live, then I will respond to your comment after the video is over. You can always catch this on the replay. If you're watching it on replay, let me know by commenting below. And sometimes I do upload these to YouTube, so if you're watching on my YouTube channel, please give this video a thumbs up and a comment to let me know that you're watching. So tonight for Stampin' Sunday, I decided that I would show you this month's Paper Pumpkin kit. So this kit came this week. This is March's Paper Pumpkin. And the name of this kit is called Here's to You. So I'm going to show you the contents. I'm going to show you some of the projects that I've worked on, and then I will show you one of the cards that I made. So with this kit, I'll show you the contents first. These are the suggested projects for the kit. So it's an 8-card kit, 2 designs, 4 of each. And so that's what these suggested projects are to look like. With every Paper Pumpkin kit, you do get a full set of instructions. So it walks you step by step how to put the kit together as intended. And then on the back, they summarize the projects again. They give you some alternatives. So let's see if I can bring this up closer. So you can see, using the same pieces but bringing in some other Stampin' Up! Products, you could create different cards. And then they also give you the links to Pinterest and Facebook, also their Instagram page. There's also a website with a video of how to do the project. Gives you the list of contents and the coordinating colors. So if you are a Stampin' Up! Lover like me, you'll have other pieces and products that will coordinate with the colors in this kit. Okay, so one of the special features that they let us know in the sneak peek for this kit was that it was going to include some stencils. So I'm going to show you how to use those stencils tonight on the card that I'm going to show you. So they also give you in the instructions some examples of alternatives using the stencils. So there's 3 different stencils, I believe, we'll look at them after, that come in this kit. One is the sunburst, one is the star pattern, which I'm going to use on a card tonight, and then one of them is different mountain scenes. So there are some alternatives to show you how to use those extra pieces. So in the kit, the contents include all the adhesives you need to do the project. So they always give you a sheet of dimensionals and then glue dots. And then you always get at least 1 color of ink. So this one's color was Calypso Coral. That's like an orangey pink color. And for the embellishment, there's a whole roll of linen thread. And then, of course, there's the stamp set. So this is the stamp set. I've stamped them out so you can see the images. So there's a couple of images here, and then a couple of greetings, and then the inside. So this is the piece that is the bonus feature for this month. It's one of these stamping sponges, and so I'm going to show you how to use that tonight also. There are 2 different card bases. So this one is Pretty Peacock, it's just plain, and then this one has a mountain scene right on it. And then there's some die cuts. So we have some clouds and some old olive strips. We have the labels for doing your sentiments on the stamping. There's these beautiful evergreen cutouts, die cut in Pretty Peacock. There's a couple sheets of those. There's some card fronts that have this beautiful scene on them. I've got some extra bits in here. There. And then these are the envelopes. So these are some beautiful craft envelopes for these cards. These are really quite different than they would normally give. Usually they're just plain white envelopes, or they've got the envelope liners in them. So this month they've given us envelope liners, but they're actually separate. So you could choose to use these in the envelopes or not. And if you've never seen envelope liners, I'll just show you. So what you would do is you'd put your adhesive on the back and then fit these inside. Can you tell I haven't used one of these yet? And then you would glue it on there. So it just gives some pattern to the inside of the envelope. Okay. And then these are the stencils. Oh, there's 4. I was wrong. There's 4 stencils. So these are the same material as the masked stencils that Stampin' Up! Has in their annual catalog. These are just different shapes. So you'll see this is the mountain one. Then there's the sunburst. There's some clouds. That's the one I was forgetting. I haven't used this one yet. And then there are the stars, which I'm going to show you how to use tonight. Okay. So like I said, we do carry in the annual catalog other stencils, and you can use these for sponging and ink, or you can use them with embossing paste. So if you haven't seen the embossing paste, it comes in a container. You use it with knives, and what you would do is you put it down on your paper. You'd use the knife with the embossing paste, and then you would lift off the stencil, and it would give you some texture in a stencil picture on your paper. So those are all the contents. And so what I want to show you tonight is the idea of paper pumpkin alternatives. So like I showed you, they give you the instructions with the projects the way they were intended to be done. And I can just tell you right now that I pulled out this kit and I didn't do any of the cards the way that I was supposed to. And actually they came together quite quickly, because when I opened the kit, I just saw all of these ideas that I could do with what was in the kit plus some extra pieces that I had. So I'll show you a couple of the alternatives, and then one of them I'll show you how I made it. So this is one. This is the card base. And so I have used the die cuts up here. I've used dimensionals for those, and I've pulled in this seagull stamp here. And I did use Calypso Coral, which is the color that comes with the kit. I've used the die cut, and then what I've pulled in is a different stamp set. So this is a stamp from the Many Mates stamp set that's in the annual catalog, and I've used the Taylor Punch. So if you have punches and other stamp sets you want to use, that's a great way to pull in other products to make a paper pumpkin alternative. The second one I did here is a little mishmash of a couple of different things. So I pulled in some cardstock. So Calypso Coral is the one I've used on the background here. And then this scallop circle is from the Layering Circles dies. And then I used the Stitched Shapes dies, which is so sad that they're retiring because they're one of my favorite set of dies. So I cut out this piece from the card base, the mountain scene, and I ran it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine with the die, and I cut that out and I glued the 2 circles together. And then this piece here, which looks like designer series paper, is actually one of the envelope liners, this one here. And I've just torn the edge on both sides and used that like designer series paper. I used the linen thread to tie the bow, and then I pulled in a piece of white cardstock. And again, this is another stamp using the Many Mates stamp set. It has quite a few sentiments and then matching sayings for the inside of the card, so that's why they're called Many Mates. And then I've used the Banner Triple Punch to flag the end here, and I've used Pretty Peacock ink, so that's one of the coordinating colors in the kit. That's why it's helpful to have those coordinating colors on the back of the box. This is another one that I've done. So again, this is an envelope liner, which I've used as DSP instead of an envelope liner. I've pulled in some Pretty Peacock cardstock just for this strip here. I've used my stitched nested labels in Calypso Coral and in white, and then this is another stamp from the Many Mates stamp set in Calypso Coral, and then again using that linen thread to tie a bow. Then I have this one. So this one's a little different. This is a card front that is supposed to go this way on the Pretty Peacock card base, but I flipped it around and I just trimmed up the edges so it would fit this way on the card. I've used the flower stamp as a background in Pretty Peacock, so I just stamped all the way across used this card front like DSP. And then this is one of the stamps that is in the kit. I've stamped it in Pretty Peacock. And I've just matte that, and this is one of the labels, sorry, from the kit. And then I've just matte that label with a piece of Old Olive, and that's sitting on dimensionals. So because you get dimensionals in the kit, that's not even something you have to make this card. You could use a different color of ink if you didn't have Pretty Peacock. So Old Olive is one of the coordinating colors. You could use that to stamp here and use black perhaps to do the background stamping. And so this is the card I'm going to show you how to make tonight. I've used one of the stencils, the stars, to do the background in Pretty Peacock. I've used one of the envelope liners to, I've just cut it so that it's like designer series paper at the bottom here. I've taken one of the card bases from the one with the mountain scene, and I've cut the mountain scene out. I've matted on some Old Olive. I'm using the die cut here. And then I've done some heat embossing with a stamp from the Beautiful World stamp set. This sadly also is retiring. This stamp set I just checked is on back order, but with stamp sets that are retiring, we can get another round of stock before it fully retires. So it is on back order, but if you do place an order, they will be coming back in stock before they retire. Okay, so I'm going to take you through how to do this card. So I'm just going to clear some of this mess out of the way. So actually for this card, I end up using the two card bases because I'm going to pull the mountain scene from one and I'm going to use the other as the background. I'm going to use this die cut, and I think the rest I'm going to get rid of for right now. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my trimmer here because we need to trim up some of these pieces. Okay, so like I said, I'm taking the card base, and I'm just going to take my trimmer and cut out this mountain scene. Now, these strips that I'm cutting away, you can use those as supplies for another card. So this big piece of cardstock, even though it's white lined, you could use this for another card or another project. So I'm just going to trim all this extra off. If you wanted to leave a little border, you could, but I liked it trimmed right to the edge. Okay, so I've got that there. So that's one piece I need to trim. And then the other piece is the envelope liner. So this is a piece of an envelope liner that I've already used part of. And I believe I cut a 1-inch strip off of this. And then I know the width of the card is 5.5, so I'm just going to give a 1/4-inch border. So I'm cutting this at 5 1/4. So now I'm left with a piece of designer series paper that's 5 1/4 inches long by 1 inch wide. Put that trimmer away. So we've got these two pieces. Okay, so with this sponge, if you've never used Stampin' Sponges before, they always come in a round shape, and actually you can get about 4 to 6 pieces out of this sponge. With the sponges, I try to use one wedge of the sponge with each different color family. So I would use one for blue ink, one for green ink, and so on and so forth. So I'm cutting it here, and it depends on how big you like the wedge to be. But I would say if I cut this way, you're going to get 6 pieces in total out of that Stampin' Sponge. And again, these are available in the annual catalog. You can pick these up. We also have blending brushes, which are new. I'm just going to pull one right out. So these are in the mini January to June catalog. You get 3 of these in a package, and it's the same idea. These have really soft bristles on them, and you can use them for blending ink. These are actually, they sold out so fast that they're actually not orderable right now, but they are coming back in stock and will be available. Okay. So first we want to do the background stencil stamping. So I'm going to take this Pretty Peacock card base and fold it in half, and grab my bone folder and just burnish the edge here. Now with the sponging, you're going to want to grab a piece of grid paper. This is the Stamparatus grid paper, so it's the smaller grid paper. This is a good size when you're working with just a small project. And I'm going to take the stencil and line it up with the edge of the card. Now for me, because I get a little messy with my stenciling, I want to hold it down a bit. So if you have washi tape is a great way to hold something like this down. I'm actually going to grab a piece of my Post-it cover-up tape. This is it's a less sticky tape, so this is why I like using it for this sort of thing. I'm actually going to hold it down on this side. Hopefully that will be enough. And I'm using Pretty Peacock ink here. Okay, so let me just get this situated here. Okay, so got the ink, and all you're going to do with the sponging is sponge in the ink. So because this is a new stamp or a new sponge I'm using, I'm making sure I have lots of ink on it. And if you don't want heavy sponging, start on the edge before you start moving in to do the sponging. So you could do one of two ways. You can either do a circular motion, or you can do the splotching. So for me, I sort of like to do both so that I'm making sure that I'm getting good coverage. And then whenever you feel like you need more ink, you just go back to your ink pad. If you have refills for your ink pads, you could also put some refill ink on a block and use it that way. I find with the ink pad it's just as easy to pull out the ink pad and just blot in there. So again, circular motions or this padding technique. So just going over where all the stencil is, and I know that with this stencil it's not quite wide enough to do the whole width of the card base the way that I have it situated, so I will be turning or moving the stencil over and redoing it. So before I lift the stencil completely off, I'm just pulling back to make sure that I've covered all the areas, so I can see on the left side here that I haven't really sponged all the way over. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to lift it up, and you can see that sponging there. And then I'm laying it down again, putting my Post-it tape down, and then going back and doing some more sponging. Okay, so again with the circular motion and the padding, you want to try to keep away from the edge because you don't want to have a big smear of the ink there. I mean, most of it will be covered by the mountain scene, but that way it'll just keep it a little cleaner. So just bear with me as I finish this up. These stencils, after I'm done with this, you could either use a baby wipe to clean it up, or I just took mine and I ran it under cold water and the ink just comes right off. And then you could store them in a Ziploc bag and keep them, you know, handy for another project. Okay, so I'm going to lift that away. And you can see I'll lift this up to the camera here. So it's a nice little subtle background for that. Now there is some overlapping and I'm completely fine with that because we're going to cover most of that up. But it's just a different way to add images to your cardstock without stamping on it, so it gives it just a different effect. Okay, so I'm going to move this sponge and stamps, or stencil, so I don't put my hands in it. And now we're going to build the card. So I'm taking this piece of designer series paper, that's what I'm calling it now. It's no longer an envelope liner. I have destroyed it. So I'm going to put a strip of the Stampin' Seal on the back, and I'm just going to line it up near the bottom because that is where the stencil is not showing, so I want to cover that up, cover up the blank space as much as possible. So for the mountain, I have grabbed a piece of Old Olive. This is 3.5 by 3 1/4 inches, so I've left a good border around the outside there. And again, I'm just taking my Stampin' Seal and gluing that right on the cardstock in the middle. Okay. And then I'm going to grab one of the die cut evergreens that were in the kit. They're delicate, so you do have to be somewhat careful with the die cuts. Now, something I did see online is somebody took one of these and they turned it over and used the sponge again in a different color. I believe it was Old Olive, and stamped the trees in Old Olive, and then used that on a project. So it's a different way you can use the sponging with the die cut shapes. I'm going to use the Pretty Peacock side, and I'm going to line it up with the bottom of the mountain scene because it's the same length, and I'm going to glue it flat. You could use your dimensionals that come in the kit because the mini dimensionals work great with this size of die cut, or you could just glue it flat. So if you didn't have adhesive and you were using the kit, you'd be using glue dots for this part. That's what the glue dots are for. Okay, I'm just gluing this down flat. And hopefully that's lined up. Okay. So the reason I made the matting a little bigger is because I knew this tree was going to hang over the edge, so that kind of catches that there. And then to put this on the card, I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals, but I'm going to pull out my full-size dimensionals because this is quite a big piece that I'm gluing down. So for this big of a piece, I'd probably use 5 or 6 dimensionals to glue this down on the card. So taking the backings off, and then this is going to go right in the middle. Okay. And then for the sentiment, so if you didn't want to do heat embossing, you could take a punch or just do a label and do the stamping. I thought that the heat embossing would add a bit of interest to this card. So I've just got a scrap of Pretty Peacock here, and I'm using the Adventure Awaits stamp from that Beautiful World stamp set. I thought this was fitting for this card with the mountain scene. And if you've never seen heat embossing before, for heat embossing you need the Versamark ink pad. This is somewhat of a sticky ink, and you need that to hold on to the heat emboss powder. And I will make the comment here, if you look at the Last Chance product list on the Stampin' Up! Website, all of the individual containers of the embossing powder are, I believe they're on sale, so they're not only retiring as single embossing powders, but I believe they're all on sale. I haven't checked the inventory to see if there's still some available, but if you're interested in embossing powders, this is a good time to stock up on those. Okay, so I like to keep my embossing powder in a lunch container with a snap lid because this way you can use a spoon and scoop the powder on. I find with the little pots of the embossing powder, I get quite a mess on my desk. So there's that. And then of course, to set the embossing powder, we need a heat tool. So I'm just going to turn on my heat tool here and let it heat up. It does get quite hot, so you don't want to be touching the end of the embossing tool. Okay, so here we go. So you're using the heat tool and until you see a change in the embossing powder. It will go from a matte finish to a glossy finish. There we go. So I'm just going to let that sit for a second here. And then, again, you could have left this as a strip and just glued it on. I'm actually going to fussy cut this out. So if ever you want something different with the sentiment, you can always fussy cut. And it doesn't take a lot of time, really, to fussy cut. The important thing I find with cutting this way is you need a pair of sharp scissors. So I'm using my paper snips, which are available in the Stampin' Up! Annual catalog. I can testify, these paper snips are quite sharp. I've poked myself, I think just once, with these scissors, which is why they come with this, the end piece on it, because you don't want to be poking yourself with them, because they are very sharp. I'm just cutting around here. I did try to find a die or a punch that would work with this, and I honestly didn't like the way that they looked. I much preferred, especially with the white embossing powder, I find I prefer it a lot better if I take the sentiment and I fussy cut it. I don't know why, but I just do. Okay, so now I'm going to glue this on the card. So I'm going to glue the left-hand side of the sentiment flat, but because this is hanging over and I've got these square on dimensionals, I'm going to attach a dimensional under there. So I'm just using my white glue here like that, and then I'm going to take one of those mini dimensionals that come in the kit, put that there, take the backing off. It's stuck to me. Okay. Oh no, it's stuck here. Didn't even take it off. Here we go. And then just gluing that in place. So on this card I've used pretty much all of the pieces, or most of them anyways, on this card using the envelope liners, the die cut, the 2 card bases, and the stencils. And you could add the linen thread to this card if you wanted to also, or some embellishments if you had them, like rhinestones or something. But this is just another way to show you a paper pumpkin alternative. So actually I've made up all of my cards with all those samples I've shown you. So this card kit for me is complete because I've cut up some of the mountain scenes because I really enjoyed those. So this card kit is complete. So if you're interested in learning more about Paper Pumpkin, of course send me a message or let me know. It is an all-inclusive monthly subscription kit. The next kit that's coming out is called So Cool, and this is the first Paper Pumpkin kit that is geared specifically towards kids, which is kind of fun because it's got all these bright colors and it's got the fruit. And so just to give you a little sneak peek about what will be in that kit, it's 12 fresh, fun-shaped cards with coordinating envelopes, watercolor images, 2 sticker sheets, a versatile stamp set, and then it says, fun for all ages. It coordinates with the Ice Cream Corner Designer Series paper, which is in the January to June mini catalog. So you could combine that paper if you own it, or you could order it, and you could combine it with the kit. So if you have kids, grandkids, nieces or nephews, I've subscribed for an extra kit for my nieces. I'm going to send that to them because they like to do, how old are they? 2, 5, and 7, and they really enjoy when I bring a Paper Pumpkin kit with me that I just leave for them, and they enjoy doing the project. So if you have kids in your life, this is a good kit. You do need to subscribe by April 10th. That's the cutoff every month, the 10th of the month, for that month's Paper Pumpkin kit. I'll leave the subscription link below if you're interested in looking at that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Okay, I hope you have a good evening, and I hope you enjoy the week. Looks like we're going to get some mixed bag of weather coming up, so it'll be an official spring week weather-wise. So take care. Have a good one. Bye now.